Previously, Kane arrived at Slan Gorge and ordered his men to kill everyone in sight. Meanwhile, Bunt and Ban enjoy their time drinking. Just then, Ban senses something and tells Bunt that they have visitors. He picks up his sword and promises to be back. He goes out and looks over the hills. A strong, bloodthirsty energy is exuding from it. Ban roughly estimates 20 people. He breathes in deeply as the cold air clears his mind. The Viper Knights arrive, and Van slowly pulls out his sword. He smiles, knowing that he can get his revenge on Salmora. He applies ore to his sword as he unsheathes it. He easily cuts down the Viper Knights in front of the cavalry. He continues cutting them down until they stop in fear. Kane swears that it was not an aura blade. He grits his teeth, as he knows Ban is a strong individual. He then orders his men to attack using their numbers. Everyone surrounds Ban with their aura blade. Ban smiles, seeing that they chose the best strategy against him. However, it is not enough to overpower Ban. Ban takes up a stance again and easily slashes the enemies in an instant. Everyone around him falls. Kane realizes Ban is using Quick Draw, a technique to surprise opponents. However, Connie remembers that the technique is only limited to the opponent in front. He panics as his men die one by one. They surround Ban again, and Kane confronts him. Kane recalls being called a genius his whole life and having no choice but to fight Ban. He then brings out his aura sword. Ban commends Kane's courage, and Kane tells him to shut up. Ban confirms if Kane is the snakehead Salmora's student. He pulls out his sword and claims that a snake can't be a dragon. Connier gets offended and attacks Ban. The two clash with each other until one falls to the snowy ground. Ban won with his aura sword. The next morning, Bunt and Ban collect the bodies. Bunt realizes that these knights are the cleanup crew, and Albert is the next person who will be anxious. Albert won't be getting reports from these dead knights. Bunt suggests sending the bodies to Count Eisen. These knights are the perfect evidence against Albert and Bunt's testimony. Ben agrees with the idea. However, Bunt can't move immediately, and he needs permission first to move around. Ben suggests going to Henry instead because he has already met Count Eisen. Bunt immediately prepares the carriage, and Ben starts to leave for Vivaldi. Meanwhile, a fully healed Albert has his head aching because of Eisen. Salmora apologizes, but Albert wants to let it be and offers him a toast. However, Salmora got his wine in a dog bowl. Albert asks for an update, and Salmora reports that the 3rd unit has already moved out to do the cleanup after the 5th unit got wiped out. Albert wonders if Eisen did all of these. He orders Salmora to stop the matter with Salgera, and they will attack Eisen instead. On the other hand, Henry and Hegler return to Vivaldi. Ten wonder why Ban is not with them. They missed each other's path, but Henry trusts that Bunt told Ban everything already. Henry then informs Ten that their group will now be in charge of delivering supplies to Salgera. Henry tells him what happened, and Ten worries that they are changing things on their own. Henry tells him that they need to set up a company first and get qualified for it. He claims Hegler is enough to handle the Salgera mission. Hegler worries, but Henry tells him that he will be using a subspace pocket instead of a carriage for delivery. Hearing that he is trusted, Hegler gets excited. Henry orders Ten to register their group with the Merchants Association while he goes to the Mercenary Guild. In the Mercenary Guild, Henry confronts the guild employee and insists that he knows about the paint industry. Henry brings out his knife and scares the employee. The employee swears to tell Henry everything. Henry asks again if he knows how the mercenaries experience casualties while the merchants are fine. He tries to pull out his sword, and the employee immediately prostrates before him. Henry notices how the employee is just too lazy to investigate things and seems unrelated at all. Henry then proclaims that 10 Million Company will be in charge of Salgera now. The guild employee worries that they need the Merchants Association's approval first. Henry scares him again, and the employee swears to get in touch with the Merchant Association's president. As expected, power is more useful than laws. Henry just needs to look for a subspace pocket. In the Empire, a worried Hiram comes to the magic tower after Salmora orders him to do so. He heard that the wizards are a bunch of weirdos. Hiram has no choice but to ask them for help to heal his arm. After he enters, he notices a book that asks him to write down the name of the person he is looking for. Hiram writes down Draken Lodic's name, and the book suddenly lights up. A strange light stretches outside and goes somewhere. A portal appears next to Hiram. He smiles as he walks toward the magic portal. Hiram immediately meets Draken and introduces himself. Draken tells Hiram to follow him so he can check his arm. They walk quite a distance, and Hiram wonders where they are going. Draken creepily tells him that they need to go a little further. They reach another portal, and Hiram worries about seeing a black portal. Draken tells Hiram to go inside, but Hiram is being cautious and wants to know where it leads. Draken claims that it is the retrogression tower. Hiram hasn't heard of the place before. Draken wonders if he wants to fix his arm and goes inside first. With no choice at all, Hiram follows Draken. He then arrives at a place where the bodies of dead people are scattered. Hiram's expression darkens. Draken welcomes him, and dark hands start surrounding Hiram. At Ten's mansion, Ben arrives with the carriage and claims he heard everything from Bunt. Henry is glad that he won't repeat himself. Henry never thought that there would be a cleanup squad. He plans to keep the dead bodies, but they need to find a way to prevent their rotting. He then casts magic to preserve the bodies. Henry thanks Ben for handling the Viper Knights. Ben tells him not to worry anymore. He then asks about Count Eisen, and Henry confirms that Eisen called for a meeting to shake things up a bit. Ben wonders if the idiot Eisen can fool Albert. Eisen might not, but their relationship will worsen. Henry thanks Ben for bringing a new stone to throw at Albert. Now that the two squads are destroyed, Albert will definitely try to figure out who is behind it. Henry plans to give the bodies back to Eisen and make him take the blame. If the news of the resupply mission is successful, their mercenary group will be known. Ben then realizes something and tells Henry that he will join him for Shonan. Henry worries, but he agrees in the end. It will be dangerous for Eisen and Ben to meet, so Henry plans to redo Ben's appearance. Henry then discusses plastic surgery, the beauty magic that only rich ladies can get. Ben gets creeped out at first, but then blushes after thinking of something. He then requests that Henry do something about his nose. That night, Henry is working hard to alter, Ben's appearance. He finally finishes the surgery, and Ben starts talking with a different voice. Henry presents a mirror for his dear customer. Ben checks his appearance and shouts in disbelief. Days pass by, and Henry and Ben arrive at Eisen's territory. The guards panicked upon seeing Henry. Ben appears and asks the guards to let them through. Henry finds Ben's vibes better now. Vetikan meets them, and Henry tells him that they have come for the same thing. Just right after Vetikan drives them away, a carriage arrives and an angry Eisen appears. Henry can see that things didn't go well for Eisen. Eisen asks what Henry needs this time. Henry then presents the Viper Knights and some pieces of evidence. Eisen wonders what kind of person Henry is, and Henry claims that everything is just pure coincidence. Henry also brings out a letter from Bunt, and Eisen immediately checks it. Henry then claims that because of his mistake, Eisen is now suspicious of him. He let the owner of the severed arm escape and might have reported everything to Albert. That's when a cleanup squad was sent to Salgera, and that very squad right now is the main evidence Henry brought to Eisen. Eisen can't blame Henry and blames it on Albert's acting skills instead. Henry smiles, seeing that he got Eisen hooked. Henry informs Eisen that these bodies are fully uniformed this time, and Eisen can't help but smile. Eisen offers a reward, but Henry refuses it. The Count gets mad for getting his goodwill rejected. Henry then claims that he desperately needs something aside from treasures. He exclaims that it is his life. Eisen is confused. Henry explains that he is scared of Albert. Ben is impressed by Henry's acting skills. Henry is scared that Albert might find out about him. Eisen understands him. Feeling responsible, Eisen promises to protect Henry's life. He gives Henry the Shonen badge that represents Eisen's family. Wearing it will prevent Henry from being harmed in public. Henry menacingly smiles as he receives the badge. Henry continues acting scared and asks Eisen what to do about Albert's assassins. Eisen wonders what to do. Henry then suggests doing the preemptive strike and showing what he is capable of. Henry suggests setting up another mission and leaking the information. Albert will definitely try to stop the mission. During that time, Eisen will provoke Albert by bringing the corpses to him. Henry claims that, despite being a strategist, Albert is physically weak and Eisen is way superior to him. Eisen menacingly stares at Henry and later laughs out loud after hearing a good idea. Eisen feels great that he found a great gem like Henry. Henry claims he doesn't deserve such praise, but Eisen proudly exclaims that he just doesn't praise anyone. After hearing that, Henry asks for one more favor. Taking them on, but Henry promises to bring Eisen's name to fame. Eisen then leaves it for Henry to handle. Days later, Samura visits Albert and enters his room. Just then, Albert grabs a plate and throws it to the surprised Samura. As Salmora bleeds, Albert asks if Salmora is even good at anything. A letter gets dropped, and Albert tells Salmora to read it. Salmora wonders what is wrong and reads the letter. His eyes widened after reading that Eisen got to clean up Squad's corpses. Albert gets mad and tells Salmora that Eisen shouldn't have gotten to him. Salmora can only apologize, but Albert doesn't need his apologies. Albert orders him to retrieve the corpses from Eisen. This will be Salmora's last chance. After he comes out of the mansion, a servant hands over a letter to Salmora. He reads it and grips it hard. Salmora gets mad and curses Eisen. Meanwhile, Ben wonders what Henry wrote in the letters. Henry claims he just provoked them and gave them a certain location and time to appear. Ben wonders if they will come. Henry did provoke Albert a little, but Salmora will respond for sure. Ben asks for the next step. Henry then plans to get Salmora first. Ben claims Salmora is strong and wonders if Henry can take him on. Henry looks at Ben and claims that it will be Ben who faces Salmora. Ben realizes that this is the price of changing appearances and agrees to take on Salmora. Ben reminds him not to be arrogant. Henry will use magic this time to fight and easily cut down the enemies. He won't hide his power because there will be no witnesses left afterward. They will clash in the Goen mountain range next to the Shonen countryside. Meanwhile, Salmora gets anxious that there is only one day left. He decides to use teleport. Just then, someone enters his office. It is Kyle, known as Kyle of Lightning. He is Salmora's hometown friend and the only magician he trusts. Salmora gets excited and starts telling his friend about his current situation. The next day, Salmora, Kyle, and their men meet up. Salmora brought in his disciple, Piff, and his squad, which is composed of sword masters. Salmora looks at the magicians brought in by Kyle. Kyle is confident with their skills, and they are all fourth circle masters. Salmora finds them reliable. They activate the teleportation magic, and Salmora announces their departure. Everyone later arrives at the Goen mountain range. Salmora then leads everyone to the meeting place. Minutes later, they meet Henry, who cheerfully greets them. Salmora wonders who Henry is, and the latter claims he is the one who sent the letter. Henry tells them that he was sent by Eisen to deal with them. He claims that 2 knights and 1 magician are more than enough. Kyle is confused, seeing that Henry is alone. He warns Salmora to be careful because the magician might be hiding. Salmora angrily asks for his subordinates' bodies. Henry points somewhere, and they discover the frozen corpses. Salmora unsheathes his sword, but Henry stops him, claiming that he is not Salmora's opponent. Henry claps his hands, and a teleportation spell appears under Salmora's feet. Salmora was forced to teleport, and Kyle can't believe what he just witnessed. He warns their men to be careful of Henry. Henry remembers Kyle as exceptional but has records of him going berserk. Seeing Kyle's disciples, Henry thinks this will be an interesting fight. Just then, he notices Piff on the sidelines. Henry decides to be careful around these two. He smirks and tells them to attack first. Piff tells his men that Salmora is still alive and orders them to attack. The knights charge toward Henry. Henry can see that Piff is different from normal soldiers. Meanwhile, Salmora wonders what just happened. Just then, someone attacks him in surprise, but Salmora quickly deflects the sword. He then sees someone approaching. Ben tells Salmora that it has been a long time. Salmora asks who he is. Ben laughs as he finds the situation quite fun. He tells Salmora to swing his sword instead of talking too much. Salmora thinks the man knows him too well. Ben then offers to reveal his identity if Salmora defeats him. Salmora then raises his sword to make Ben regret his words. Ben brings out his bloodthirsty ore as he recalls that Salmora is one of the most active contributors in the kingdom. Salmora can feel the intense bloodlust and wonders what is the identity of the man in front of him. Salmora's stance gets heavier as he brings out his ore. He plans to use his full power. Ben smiles as watches Salmora's serious expression. He points out his sword and asks the blue serpent to attack him. Salmora gets mad and attacks Ben with an aura slash. Ben smiles as he receives the attack. However, Salmora notices him disappear. Ben asks Salmora where he is looking and attacks from behind. Ben tells Salmora to look at him. Salmora quickly turns around and blocks Ben's attack. Salmora grits his teeth and parries the sword. Ben notices how Salmora's skills got dull. Ben then uses his special technique and breaks the dimension. He quickly moves and attacks with his bloodthirsty aura with his signature skill. As Salmora tries to block it, he recognizes the skill. He blocks the attack until his sword crumbles. Salmora recognizes the galaxy downpour. On the other side of the mountain range, the knights attack Henry altogether. The magicians start casting their magic. Henry can see that the knights are buying time for them. He orders Clever to get ready. Henry uses Blink and surprisingly appears in front of Kyle. He uses magic armor and attacks the surprised Kyle. Henry can only smirk. Piff is offended that a magician is imitating a swordsman. He is really offended and kicks Henry with horror. Seeing Henry fall to the ground, Piff uses this chance to finish off Henry. However, he felt something on his back. He was stabbed by his allies. The wizard behind him is just frozen in place while calling his master. Piff suddenly feels sick and falls to the ground. Henry laughs as the poison hits Piff. The wizard also starts acting up and falls down. Kyle orders his men to detoxify the poison. Everyone uses the cure, but in the end, Piff dies. Kyle can't believe a sword master died just like that. Kyle is creeped out that all of this is happening because of Henry. Henry stands up as he claims that he almost died. He commends Clever, who appears beside the unconscious wizard. Henry finds his poisonous blood useful and assures Kyle that his disciple didn't betray them. Everyone is in a state of panic. Henry menacingly smirks, and Kyle gets angry and starts a magic spell chant. Henry wonders if it is memorize. Henry uses Blink and grabs Kyle's mouth. He uses a freezing spell to stop Kyle's chanting. Kyle's disciples run to save their master, but they are too slow. Henry quickly gets behind them and knocks them out. He suggests the wizard's workout. The knights charge at Henry. Henry clicks his tongue and raises an iron wall to stop them. Henry turns his attention to Kyle and grabs him. They fly to the sky, and Henry freezes Kyle's legs. He also uses freeze to create a block of huge, sharp ice on the ground. He tells Kyle goodbye and lets go of him. Kyle falls on his own, and seeing the sharp ice makes him think that everything is now over. Just then, Henry freezes Kyle at the moment that the wizard almost reaches the sharp point. Kyle is just there, looking like a fancy ice decoration. Henry claims that a wise teacher gives a chance to his foolish student. Henry feels bad looking at the sword masters. He wants to learn the terror of a wizard. Henry continues invoking magic, and the knights start running away. Henry feels good about killing the knights' pride. Thunderbolts start roaring, and Henry orders them to get off. The running knights are bombarded by lightning magic until nothing is left. Meanwhile, we can see Ben using his technique again. Salmora barely survived that attack. Ben can see why Salmora is part of the 10 swords. Salmora asks Ben if he really is Ben. Ben can't believe Salmora just figured it out, and he looks down at the trembling Salmora. Ben has been waiting to kill Salmora since the great prince's death. Ben tells him not to complain when Salmora himself kills a lot of people. Ben also asks why Salmora is not ashamed of being a part of the 10 swords. Salmora tries to stop Ben. However, Ben finishes him off. He feels disgusted that Salmora is calling his name. He then drags Salmora's body while wondering about Henry's situation. The two meet up, and Ben wonders why there is only one guy left. Henry claims he just flexed his magic after a long time. Ben really finds Henry's magic level suspicious. Henry tells Ben to check out his artwork. He introduces Kyle to Ben and claims he left the 4 magicians alive. Ben thought that they would not leave any witnesses alive. Henry then flicks his fingers, and the ice starts to thaw out, dropping Kyle to the ground. Henry melts the ice, and Kyle gasps for air. Kyle sits up and notices that Salmora is dead. Kyle kneels before the almighty Henry. Henry then tells him that the knights are all dead. Kyle then begs for mercy, and he will do anything. He trembles as Henry asks if he is sure of what he just said. Henry then gives Kyle a knife and asks him to kill his disciples so Henry can spare his life. Kyle trembles in fear and worry. The two villains start glaring at him and tell him to prove it with actions. Kyle moves as he apologizes to his disciples. Just when Kyle is going to stab one of his disciples, Henry intercepts the knife and claims that Kyle has already proved his usefulness. However, Henry never said anything about sparing Kyle's disciples. The wizards are the Empire's property. Kyle took them out using his name, and if they are found dead, he will be labeled a traitor, and his future is as good as over. Kyle asks Henry to spare his disciples' lives because they were only following him. Henry smiles as he sees that Kyle has already calculated everything. Kyle asks again for mercy, but Henry points out that Kyle almost killed them a while ago. Henry then decides to spare them, but he wants Kyle to pay for their lives using every ounce of his capability. Kyle swears to bark like a dog if he has to. Henry then brings out a narworm, a worm that nests in a magician's heart and explodes under stress if no mana is supplied. Kyle accepts his fate, and the narworm gets into his body. It crawls into his arm until it reaches his heart. Kyle's mana is now consumed, and only Henry can remove it or resupply the mana once a week in Vivaldi. If Kyle fails to meet Henry, his heart will explode. Henry introduces himself, and Kyle gets flustered hearing his teacher's name. Henry then starts to talk about work. Days later, in Eisen's mansion, Ban worries that Kyle will spread information about them. Henry tells him not to worry because of the narworm. Despite being scorned by Vatican, he and the other soldiers still salute Henry and Ban. Henry laughs at him and proceeds inside the mansion. Eisen happily welcomes Henry. He wonders if Henry really killed Salmora. Henry tells him to check the carriage. Eisen is surprised to see the heads of Salmora and Piff. Eisen commends Henry for his job. That night, everyone had a banquet until everyone was out because of the alcohol. Henry actually put them to sleep so he could talk with Eisen discreetly. A drunk Eisen is still complimenting Henry's talent. Henry then taps Ban. Ban starts acting sick and leaves for the bathroom. Henry taps his badge for some reason and asks Eisen for more drinks. As Henry pours the drink, Eisen notices how the badge looks good on Henry. Henry claims that he only won thanks to the badge given by Eisen. Henry then asks if he can dare say something. Eisen slams his mug and tells Henry to speak comfortably. Henry smiles as the foolish Eisen agrees. Henry then suggests that Eisen is more suitable for a higher position. Eisen laughs out loud and claims that he is ambitious. He then asks for Henry's suggestion to get him promoted. Henry claims they can only talk about it after they succeed with the second indictment against Albert. Eisen wonders if Henry doesn't trust him. Henry denies this and claims that it is good to have a great assistant like him around. Eisen finds Henry too arrogant. He then decides to give Henry a second chance and a chance to be his assistant. Henry respectfully bows to Eisen as he swears to do anything that Eisen orders. Henry will make another version and report back to him. Meanwhile, Albert wonders why Salmora is not contacting him after 3 days. He wonders if he was fooled by Eisen. Just then, his servant comes running and informs Albert that Eisen called for an indictment again. The Emperor meets the Marquises and counts that night. Seeing Eisen smile, Albert wonders what he is up to again. Eisen keeps smiling at the scared Albert. The Emperor wonders if it is about Albert again. Eisen did call for an indictment, and the Emperor asked Eisen to tell them what was going on. Eisen then claims that another shameless person has deceived the Emperor. The foolish Emperor asks, "Who is it this time?" He claims it is Marquis Albert again. The Emperor asks for more details. Eisen claims that he has more evidence this time. The Emperor gives his permission, and the evidence is brought in. They later see the bodies of the 3rd unit of the Viper Knights, led by Kane. Eisen claims that they tried to get rid of the evidence with the people and tried to kill the witnesses, inspectors, and other soldiers. The Emperor can't believe Albert is using the Imperial Knights to get rid of the evidence. Eisen confirms it with a document, the testimony of Bunt, the chief prosecutor of Saljura. That concludes part 7 of this recap. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. What will happen next? If you would like to see a part 8 of this manhwa, let us know in the comment section below. Till next time.